when you get to be yourself, you don't go around disrespecting people, but you also don't put up with shit from people. When you are spiritual, you don't actually feel in a way that is small, but you don't feel more or do more than people. Okay, so when you have healthy self worth, you know what it means to be yourself. Although we have a lot of people online who consistently think that being yourself means to be rude to each other. And at the same time, I get it because I see a lot of adaptive children out there, not functional adults, speaking from their mouths. So they don't, for example, easily love and they don't unconditionally love. And I'm going to use a story that is not mine to give you the example. At IHP, number one, we do personal development, self-help. I do, and I share with you self-empowered stories. So self-empowered equals I love unconditionally all 8 billion and more people. I learned from Jesus, and then I kept on learning for me personally. And anyone who does personal development or self-help, they are seeking emotional and mental mastery and more. So unconditional love is part of the equation. And so you do know that every person begins their life like anyone else with a 1-year-old. And so, with that, the story is our lovely narcissist content creator, and she shares her journey to healing, and she also is in remission for borderline personality. She has an authentic, beautiful relationship with a sociopath. When you go and look at what she is doing, she is helping her community, the ones who are healing, to know you're healing. Great. Here's what it's like to go through, for example, split thinking or black and white thinking when the one tells you you're the one. And she shares about her actually telling him, no, you're not, and completely throws everything out. She has a moment of where she's offline. So she got triggered because he told her she was the one, and she, nope, I'm not the one, and she treated him in a way that was beyond, but he knows of her diagnosis, so he kept all the stuff, and then she calmed down, and I think it was the day after, I don't know the whole story, but they got back together, and they're completely happy, and they're doing a lot of amazing healing with their good therapists, and then together loving each other. And so that's what it looks like for people who are the 5D collective, is what I get to call them, okay? And that's me as a 5D mystic, because I bring mystic and spiritual and spirituality and sciences, the pseudoscience lady, okay? But I integrate it all because personal development, self-help is part of the spiritual journey and process. That's where the people who don't understand this, they haven't claimed their humanness yet. Their human name, their humanness, any of it. So I'm my solo self, my core self, my narrative relational self. My name's Maria, and I'm a functional adult. And I have a herd, and it's called human beings. And Jesus already had taught me about my brothers and sisters. Okay, so she shares in another short how she, again, has been making amends, but those people, they're not actively interested in building what is a genuine relationship again to the same depth that they experienced in the past. And she's sad about it. She's bummed out, but she understands. And so as she's closing out, she says, I treated them really poorly and I hurt them. I hurt them emotionally. She doesn't talk about it as something in a way of it being a word. She says, I hurt their feelings. She empathizes with compassion with herself and others in the awareness of when you emotionally hurt someone that's been there for you to the extent of actively no reason except for wanting. And I treated them poorly completely. Of course, why would they? That makes sense. Okay, so as she's sharing, I would have wanted to just be able to give her a hug and say, I totally get what you're saying, because, yeah, I know a lot of people like that. But I totally would not be one of those people, also is what I would love to share with her, because, I get it. She didn't choose that her 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, she didn't choose the unresolved trauma that was given to her. And she is actively healing. But I also get, like she says, those other people. And I get it because I have a lot of, again, people who would do what these people did. And I don't personally, it's not about agreeing. I wouldn't do it because I would be very happy. I'd be like, wow, you're finally, that's so awesome. Tell me more about what's going on. How's it going? How's it going? Now at the same time, obviously you disrupt a relationship, meaning that there are things that happen in the meantime, right? And so and now we're just going to deviate. Time is limited, so people can rebuild those relationships however it comes to them. But if you're out of a routine with people, that can happen to where you're not going to participate in each other's lives the same way. Not what she was saying, though. So when you are an authentic person, you understand emotions. That's all people. When you want to demonize or romanticize anything, then you're with the mantles. Those are Cusco people. Anyone who's accentuating stories versus knowing that we all have a 1-year-old, at least in the personal development, self-help, spiritual world. So the ones of us who look to inner and outer well-being, we talk to about emotional intelligence, mental intelligence. Anyone who's talking to about being human will know, if they're updated with attachment and trauma, that all people are 1-year-olds, and if they lost something sacred, they didn't choose to lose it. And if they're searching for it, if they're doing childhood trauma therapy, they're going to find it, and then they're going to be back to themselves, their true self. And of course, we're going to welcome you back. And we're going to welcome you with open arms. And we're not going to demonize you. Jesus taught me that to begin with, by the way. So did God. And so did any other person who knows what faith is from their ears and the Holy Spirit. And so spiritual gifts, clairs, or the way the sciences explain it, it's all one and the same. It's called, there's a relational field, consciousness, and those of us who tap into it, great and dandy. We don't do more. We tap into our collective. Like right now, it's Leo season. I was wondering, this entire day there's been a lot of fiery energy around, and I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty sure it's always around this time. Yeah. And yesterday we began Leo season. So it's a charge, it's a nice one. And a lot of those who don't know how to tend to their own self, well, they don't know how to tend to their 1-year-old. So their 1-year-old is actively participating. This is a side note. Again, being yourself. We don't disrespect others. We welcome others. Also, being yourself doesn't mean that I'm going to state truth or facts. I'm going to have conversations. Spiritual. We don't feel more than you do or do more than you do. We are people, and we love to do love with those who are loving and kind and compassionate. And when we meet those who choose fear, so they actively don't, for example, do what our lovely content creator shares with us about her own journey. So they don't tell you, I'm so sorry for what happened. I am healing, and I would love for us, okay? So when that doesn't happen, well, for one, I would say it means that they're not ready, they're not doing good therapy, whatever it is. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm actually smiling because it's kind of like when Patrick Tiahan says, the people who are like, why is everyone talking about trauma? It's so boring. Yeah, it's not boring at all. It's that if you had abuse, neglect, or trauma in a way that's significant, thank you, Dr. Basil Vanderkolk, you start developing heartache and gut wrench as it gets expressed somewhere in the midline of your body. That's where the trauma is experienced. And as, again, our lovely Patrick Tiahan, so why are you always talking about trauma? And he says the person who is avoiding real intimacy, who is avoiding emotions completely, who exhibits trauma responses and has a poor sense of self. So when I meet people who don't know that we are all humans and we all can be in our rest and rejuvenate, they don't know how to appreciate actual genuine interactions. Confrontations are not with the sympathetic for the Pachas of the world, and that's where IHP is at. We're Pachas, the 5D collective. Christ, he taught us about love, and that's what we keep on sharing. We heal trauma one person at a time, one relationship at a time. It's because healthy, self-worth people welcome all back home, and when we have Cuscos, like Pacha, we know how to handle Cuscos. We got Diego, we know how to walk with Diego and say, this is what a herd does, not what your herd does. What your herd does is actually called low self-esteem, indirect communication. They need good therapy. And if they have addictions to drugs, alcohol, sex, and anything that is basically not healthy, well, that's not really the crowd that you want to be around if you're healing. And we want to not judge people. But again, if they're on that slippery slope, you need a lot more support. So the healthy self-worth people, we support those who are looking to love. The ones who are not yet here, they have either chosen to stay on the human suffering love narrative or some other narrative. They might call it something different. In the meantime, thank you for stopping by, and I enjoy If you enjoyed, please share, like, and subscribe and tune in. And we'll be back with more. Have a good one.